scenes. I am reading from Pilgrim's Progress, beginning on page 64. Then the interpreter took him and led him near the gate of the palace. And behold, at the drawbridge there stood a great company of schoolmen and scholars, all greatly desirous of going in, but not daring to take action. Drawing closer, Christian heard two of them conversing as they tried to muster up enough courage to make a move. Said the first, "Well, aren't you going in, dear professor?" To this the second bowed low, swept his four-cornered cap gracefully toward the guarded gate, and answered, "Not just now, lad. After you." "Not at all. Age before beauty, you know. Heh." "Ah, to the contrary, young man. 'Tis fools rush in." Near the side of the moat was a table with a book and a pen and a writer's inkhorn. Sitting at it was a dignified person, whom I assumed to be some sort of scribe or notary. Upon seeing him, Christian asked, "What is the purpose of this gentleman?" "His work it is to take down the names of those who have the courage to enter in." "Ah." After what seemed to be forever, the notary drummed his fingers impatiently on the table and called out, "Come, come, come! Is there not one man among you with enough faith to take the kingdom of heaven by violence?" In response to this challenge, there was total silence and downcast eyes. After a few moments, Christian remarked, "No answer." "Aye, none." "Do they not desire the kingdom?" "Aye, with all their hearts. Or at least so they tell us." "Then why do they wait?" Then the interpreter pointed into the city and said, "Look, look, past the drawbridge." And so Christian looked therein, and saw many knights in shining armor guarding the gate. These were armed to the teeth with lances, spears, swords, daggers, maces, clubs, and shields. Moreover, there were catapults, trebuchets, and other great machines of war upon the walls. There were also many battle chariots drawn by matched teams of mighty black stallions. Christian noticed that the warriors were all on alert, yea, so much so that if one of the scholars so much as looked at the gates with longing eyes, the dark knights would bestir themselves, and the anxious stallions would paw sparks off the cobblestones with a whinny of eager anticipation. Then was Christian confused, and asked, "My, what are all these fierce warriors about?" Answered the interpreter, "Their work is to defend the castle from any who would enter in. They are commanded not to yield admittance at any low price." Then was Christian near to tears, because so far as he could tell, there was not one with enough strength or courage to enter in. Then he once again chanced to overhear the same two schoolmen conversing as before. The elder of the two, royally attired in his cap and gown, stood, hands on his hips, glaring with furrowed brow at the guarded gate. His younger companion, after waiting in vain for his professor to lead the way, finally turned contemptuously and sneered, "Well, aren't you going in?" To this his instructor answered dryly, "Oh no, lad, 'twas you who were here first. Courtesy dictates that I should follow after you." "Not at all," snapped the youth. "Age before beauty, you know." "To the contrary," countered the second dryly. "'Tis fools rush in." Replied the younger sarcastically, "You said that last time." To which the older quipped arrogantly, "So did you." At last it became obvious that these men, along with multitudes of the same ilk, were hanging back for fear of the armed men at the gate. Just when Christian was beginning to despair, he saw a young man of no apparent distinction marching bravely to the fore. He had a very determined look, and coming directly to the notary's table, said boldly, "I choose to believe the words in my little book, sir. Therefore set down my name, for I would enter in." "And what be thy name?" asked the notary. "Belief be the name, sir, belief." "And in what do you believe, good fellow?" challenged the writer. "In the promises of he who has invited me to enter in." "Which promises, good sir?" "The one that saith, There shall no man be able to stand before thee," the man answered. "Also another which saith that the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force." Ah, weapons well chosen. Your name be writ down, Mr. Belief. Therefore have on, and God be with thee. Now when the armed men at the gate saw that someone was actually putting down his name, they began to bestir themselves, and to boast loudly of what they would do to him. And I must inform you that these were no idle threats, for they that made them were no ordinary soldiers, nay, but rather giants, conscripted in mass from the town of Gath. The swarthy commander spoke first, saying to one of his heavily bemuscled companions, "Hey, hey, hey! Look'ee, mate!" "What?" asked the second, looking up from shining his armor to espy Mr. Belief signing his name with a flourish. "Ah, so! A fool has come to engage us in battle, has he?" "Good," growled the first, gingerly testing the razor-sharp edge of his sword with his nail. "My blade has been too long thirsty for blood." "Aye," snarled the second, testing the sharp points on his mace, "and the nails on my club have grown rusty. Come, fool!" Now Mr. Belief, completely ignoring the swaggering giants and their ferocious threatenings, went straight to the armory to dress for battle. Then Christian, fearing for his safety, asked, "Will he battle them all alone?" "Only to the eye of appearance," said the interpreter calmly. "But look how many there are, and how huge! And see how deadly their weapons, and fierce their faces!" "He he he!" chuckled the interpreter merrily. "They are nothing but paper giants, lad. Paper giants, who never hope to win a battle." "What do you mean?" "Watch. Just watch and see." So Christian beheld as the man put on his head the helmet of salvation, fashioned about his loins the belt of truth, and strapped over his chest the breastplate of righteousness. On his feet he buckled the swift sandals of the preparation of the gospel of peace, which would enable him to dart among his enemies, quick as a ray of light. Then, taking up his faithful shield, which was impervious to fiery darts, and the sharp two-edged sword, which cuts quickly to the very bone and marrow, he stood full abreast at the drawbridge. "On guard!" he shouted. Then he was off in a rush against the armed men at the door. "Stop him!" cried the captain. "Get him!" shouted his lieutenant grimly. "Off with his head!" cried one of the giants as he raised a huge headsman's axe. "Organize, men!" shouted the captain as they began to scatter in confusion. "Bring forth reinforcements!" screamed the lieutenant as his weapon went skittering along the top of the stone pavement. "More troops! Stop him!" commanded the captain as he saw his men surrendering ground. Watching as more warriors rushed to join the melee, Christian grew more fearful than ever and cried out, "He has no chance!" Amused at his alarm, the interpreter only smiled calmly and said, "The battle is not over. Watch on." The men at the gate laid upon Belief with deadly force, but the man, not at all discouraged, fell to cutting and hacking most fiercely, crying out, "You shall not stop me with your paper swords and mache masks. Take that!" "Ugh!" groaned one wounded giant. "Help!" cried another. "Send 4 legions!" Then Belief seized upon his advantage and pushed forward with all boldness, saying, "Nor shall I fall back, though you call forth a multitude more vicious than you. Back, I say! Ha!" "Ugh! Stop!" begged one of the giants. "Nay, but fall back more yet," he commanded with a swish hack of his two-edged sword. Now by this time the giants and their reinforcements had begun to retreat in complete disarray. Here and there and everywhere weapons of every sort lay scattered over the ground. One giant tripped over his own feet and became a stumbling block for 3 more, who landed on their heads. Seeing the tide turn in his favor, Mr. Belief gathered up yet more courage and shouted, "Run, feeble cowards, run for your lives! Take that! Ha! And that!" "No!" blubbered one of the giants piteously. "Have mercy!" To this Belief only attacked the more fiercely, saying, "There be no mercy for such lying impostors as you! Ha!" Then the captain himself cried out, saying, "Pity! We will be your slaves! Only have pity!" At this, Belief staunched the unquenchable fury of his attack and commanded them to throw down their weapons. This they gladly did with a great clatter, all the while trembling with fear. Then he pointed the way to the dungeon, to which they eagerly marched with hands raised high above their heads. Entering the gloomy dungeon with obvious relief, they locked the door behind themselves and gladly gave him the key. All the while they kept up a constant whimpering, saying, Mercy, gentle knight, we were only doing our job, have mercy. Then, amidst cheering from they that were within, Belief tossed the key into the moat, and marched forward into the palace. As he drew near the prize of his high calling, he heard pleasant words from those that walked on top of the walls. One said joyfully, come in, eternal glory thou shalt win. Another said, come in, enter into the glory of thy Lord, come in. Suddenly Christian clapped his hands with joy and exclaimed, say, I think I know the meaning of this one. Oh, said the interpreter. Yes, for look, there are neither dead nor wounded, nor is there any blood on the ground, but there are masks scattered hither and yon. Those fellows with such fierce faces and shining swords were only actors in a play. He he he, aye, chuckled the interpreter merrily, but they are only seen to be such by the eye of faith. To the faithless, 'tis a different tale. Listen to those two professors over there. So Christian turned to hear two doctors of theology, commenting on recent events. Said the first to his companion, with a genteel bow and a gesture toward the drawbridge, after you, good sir. Oh no, demurred the second. I have been teaching here only a few years. Common courtesy demands that I give way to seniority, dear doctor. Why do you quake in fear, lad? Yon brave man hacked his way through easily enough. Aye, but did you see his armor? I have none such to protect my innards. Well, does it look like I do? Then shall we stand here forever, dear colleague, ever hoping and desiring to enter in, but never coming to the realization of it? The time is not right, that's all, the wise man declared sagaciously. We must wait for the promise of the latter rain, which will fit us up for the battle. Yes, I believe so too, said his colleague with a wistful glance toward the heavens. But as yet I see nary a cloud in the sky. Nor do I, said the elder, scanning skillfully a periodical. And looking here in the church paper, I do not see much as a forecast of clouds, let alone rain. Puzzled his colleague. Strange that this illiterate and gullible underling was able to hack his way through before us. Aye, added his indignant companion, and that without one class in the use of the sharp two-edged sword. Whilst we are veritable experts in its use, grumbled the first. Indeed, in fact, I went to an outside university to obtain my degree in swordsmanship. Eh? Did you now? Said his companion, feigning disinterest. Well, so did I. In fact, I'm licensed by the state to use my sword. How this blustering commoner hacked his way through is a complete mystery to me. Oh, beginner's luck, no doubt, surmised the second. Or perhaps brute strength, groused the first. I wonder if we should turn him in for using his sword without a license. Say now, that might not be a bad idea. Well, while we're waiting for the clouds to form, shall we have a duel? Yes, a splendid idea, agreed the first eagerly. 'Twill give us something to do and keep our swords sharp besides. On guard! On guard, said the second, drawing his foil. So they earnestly began their oft-practiced and skillful choreographed duel. Then Christian turned to the interpreter and said, They are afraid. Aye, but the defenders are not real. To those who will not take God at his word and move forward, said the interpreter sadly, the warriors are more real than you can imagine. 'Tis a mystery, this faith business, said Christian, shaking his head. To this the interpreter nodded in agreement, saying only, Aye.